No, it doesn't.
Oh, get out of town. Are you kidding me?
Here.
Oh. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. All right. This one's just been broken, this thing. Yeah. Everyone else should be fine. All right. I'll call the Planning Commission meeting on December 20th to order at 6:31. First up is the approval of minutes. Any changes?
So moved.
Moved by Randy. Seconded by Janelle. Any further edits? Seeing none. All in favor of approving, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, nay? All right, that is approved. I do not believe we have anyone that wants to speak on a non-agenda item. I think everyone's here for an agenda item, so that's good, unless I'm wrong. Raise your hand quick, wave at me. All right. Anything for agenda review that we need to change around at all?
No changes this evening.
All right, well, we'll get right to it. First two items are related to the same thing, and I believe Mark is here to speak to these. The certified survey request and rezone request for the Jones Family Sain Farm Trust. And I don't know if you want to come up and speak to it at all, Mark. I don't think I have to. Okay. All right, then we can have a staff report then.
Very good. This is a revision of a previously approved proposal. Plan Commission and Council approved this in July of 2020, of 22 this year. And what has changed with this amendment is that the applicant requests to create just one residential lot. The previous request was going to create two residential lots, and I can just bring up my... the previous request was to create two residential lots, and one would be the house on the south side, here, lot 2, and then the previous one was to create a lot around the existing farmhouse. This amendment is only to create a residential lot for the house to the south. Otherwise, the application is exactly the same. The applicant is proposing to purchase some lands from the Lowry Farm and the Kane Farm to the south. That ensures that Lot 1 will be more than 35 acres, which is what is required for exclusive agricultural zoning. So Lot 1 will remain exclusive agricultural zoning. Lot 2 will also remain exclusive agricultural zoning. The planning staff does recommend approval of this rezone request with 4 conditions, and then approval of the certified survey map with a total of 14 conditions.
All right. And Ed, did you talk about this in Ag and Rural Affairs?
We did, and it was recommended unanimously for approval. There were no issues with it. It's really not a big change from what was being proposed before.
All right. And then I do have Mike Connor who would like to speak. If you want to come up, Mike? No? All right. Well, he is in support of the matter, so it's important to know that he is in support. And so with that, I can open up to comments or any questions or anything on especially the CSM. If anyone has any? Doesn't look like it. Someone wants to do a motion? That'd be great.
Are we still in the public hearing?
I was doing the CSM first, then I'll do the public hearing for the rezone.
Oh. I'll move approval of CS 2453-22 with the 14 conditions as noted.
Oh, 4. Only 4 on the rezone.
So
Oh, wait. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're right. They were switched on the
okay, so yeah, we're
Sorry.
doing the CS first,
Yep.
yeah, with the 14
Sorry.
conditions.
Sent by Janelle. And all in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that is approved. Now I will open up the public hearing for the rezone request. And like I mentioned, Mike Connors is in support of this. And I don't think there's any other comments that I have anyway. So I can close the public hearing and open up again to any further questions or comments at all. If anyone has anything.
Move approval of rezone RZ 2455-22 with the 4 conditions as noted.
I'll second.
Seconded by Rich. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that is approved as well. Thank you. All right, next up is the public hearing and for the conditional use request by Jason Hewitt. And Jason and I think Jay are both here, or Jason's here to speak anyway. If you want to come up and let us know what you're doing, or if you want staff to just do a staff report, that's fine too. All right.
Okay. So, this is a conditional use request to operate a fitness center at property located at 6111 Cottonwood Drive. So it's right on the corner of Commerce Park and Cottonwood Drive. Staff has not seen any issues with the zoning or the future land use plan. The applicant is requesting this approval for a business called CrossFit Mojo. The Plan Commission approved a similar conditional use for Kicks Unlimited in 2013. The applicant does not intend to make any changes to the building. The property owner added 23 additional parking spaces in 2013 to accommodate Kicks Unlimited. Staff does not believe that parking will be a problem with this business. Staff notes that the older north parking lot is in poor condition. The property owner has indicated intention to do a rebuild of that north parking lot. The business hours would be Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 7 p.m., and Saturday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. While the business owner has not held a neighborhood meeting at this time, staff believes that this use is similar to the previous approved use, and staff has no knowledge of complaints or issues with Kicks Unlimited or the former business. Staff does note that Payne and Dolan produces heavy truck traffic on Cottonwood. Customers of this proposed use should be directed to the southern parking lot when possible. Parking on Cottonwood should be avoided. Then staff is just providing to the Plan Commission some of the standards for conditional use permits, something that you all have certainly seen before. Staff recommends approval of this conditional use request with the 6 conditions noted.
All right, I will open the public hearing. Like I mentioned, we have Jason Hewitt here, who is available to answer any questions and is in support of this. And we also have Jay Ogle here as well, is registering in support of the matter as well. And he's from Madison. He's part of CrossFit Mojo. I don't have anyone else that wants to speak from the public, so I can close the public hearing and open up to questions and comments from Plan Commission. Seems pretty similar to the previous use.
Only question I had was on the hours of operation. Is that going to be too limiting on Saturday from 8 till 10? I'd hate to have them come back if, in a year or even 6 months from now and have to say, we need it open till noon. It just seems pretty tight.
Do any of you want to come up and speak to that at all? Yeah, come up to the mic. So we have one person online. He can't hear you if you don't speak in the mic.
Yeah, I would be in favor. That's our scheduled hours currently, 2 class times from 8 to 9 and 9 to 10. That being said, if we did have increased demand and needed to expand, it would be great to have that flexibility.
Yeah, we don't charge you by the hour, so that's why I would rather just take care of it
Yeah.
and give you, reasonable expansion of that. That seems pretty restrictive
Yeah.
compared to what we normally see.
7 to noon would probably be as expanded as we would need for Saturdays.
Any concerns? Yeah. All right. I don't either, but I don't want to speak for anyone else. Any other questions or comments?
No objection.
I have a question.
Yeah, Zach, go ahead.
Is there actually an entrance on that south side of the building? I'm like looking at the, Google Maps, and it doesn't really look like there's an entrance. It just kind of looks like a loading dock almost.
There's a entrance at one door and then a garage door as well, but yes, there's an
Okay.
entrance, yeah.
Anyone else?
I'll move to approve CU 2485-22 with the 6 conditions noted by staff with an amendment to number 4 to have Saturday reflect 7 a.m. to 12 noon instead of 8 till 10.
Second.
seconded by Randy. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that's approved. Thank you. All right, next up is D, the conditional use request for drinking places conditional use permits. And I believe we've got Ben Christensen on the line to speak to this.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to it, or I can follow a pattern with having the city speak to it, but I'll go ahead. The background is I own 3 retail wine stores in Green Bay, Milwaukee, and Delafield. I'm seeking to purchase the Steves and Moore store on McKee Road, and I have worked out a purchase agreement with Randy Watlett, the current owner. Randy proposed to the city in 2019 to roll his license to a Class B license in order to have a tasting wine room or wine seminar room. Presently, my 3 other stores do have all Class B license, and the reason for that is that we do wine seminars in the style of the Master Sommelier program. Right now, the only way we can do the level of education that we want is through the Class B. So what I'm proposing to do is the only change I want to make to the Steves and Moore on McKee Road is to take their back room and turn it into a wine tasting room. We use it for wine education seminars. They happen about once a week. They're 12 to 16 people. So that's really the entire usage difference that you would see from the current license that Steves and Moore has.
All right, thank you. Can you do a staff report, please, Deanna?
We certainly can. Okay, so we talked about using the existing space in the store, reconfiguring that. What is happening is when Mr. Christensen has indicated his interest in doing a Class B alcohol license, that steps him into a different world for zoning. So he is coming to Plan Commission for a drinking establishment or a drinking place conditional use. As you can see, or as you heard, Mr. Christensen doesn't have any intention of having a bar. The conditional use will be specific to his seminar and tasting activities. We have been, and we all have been working with the building inspector just to make sure that they are okay with entries and exits. I think there's a couple things that we might have to work through in terms of egress and exit, making sure we have a minimum width of the path, access to handicap accessible restrooms, and final site plan. The building inspector would like a final site plan before hosting the first seminar. So I'm just bringing this to your attention that staff has been working with building inspection just to make sure everything is going to work well in the space of Steve's Liquor. Building inspection, the building inspector informed me today that he's all good to go with the exception of that final visit prior to hosting the first seminar. So staff does recommend approval of this conditional use with those following conditions, those five conditions.
All right, thank you. I will then open up the public hearing. I do not have anyone from the public that I see that wants to speak, so seeing no one, I can close the public hearing but open up to questions and comments from Plan Commission. Straightforward one.
I have a question.
Yeah, Zach.
Because it's come up in this space before, and I know staff says they're not concerned about it, but parking is always a concern in this space. So I think Randy's currently has about 5 spots out front, and this would potentially be 12 to 16 spots plus regular visitors. And that parking lot is often already full. So I'm just curious how we're addressing the parking situation.
If I can comment on that, Randy's or Steves and Moore, I believe, has 10 spots. So designated for their own parking. And to my understanding, and this is how it works at my other stores, looking at the clientele that exists in Orchard Point, our tastings would tend to fall off time to the other businesses. We tend to do the seminars, we do the seminars 6:30 to 7:30. And so the only other restaurant that would be affected is Buffalo Wild Wings, whereas, you know, the fitness center that's close to us, the iPhone place that's close to us, it wouldn't be during their busy time. And I see that in my other locations across Wisconsin, is that our seminar tastings tend to fit real nicely with the mixture of businesses in a development like that. Also, most people, and I can't guarantee this obviously, but most people choose to attend as couples. So if it's a 12-person tasting, you're looking at 6 cars typically that come.
Other questions or comments at all? I don't see anything. If someone wants to do a motion.
I'll move approval of conditional use permit CU-2486-22 with the 5 conditions set forth by staff.
Second.
Sent by Stephen. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, nay. All right, that one is approved. All right, next up, we've got the conditional use request by Jeffrey O'Brien. And I think we've got a couple people here to speak to this. I don't know, Jeff, if you want to kick it off, or whoever you want to speak to let us know what's going on. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm happy to kick it off. So this is an opportunity we have to partner with a telecommunications company that's laying high grade fiber optic line in the area. And so, you know, a good value add to the surrounding communities to get high speed access. Also makes efficient use of our agricultural property, with the conditional use exception being allowed for telecommunications. So we have a storage ability, they have a storage need, and it's a good product for the community. And with that, I'll turn it over to our partners in this project.
Okay, I think that's me. Can everyone hear me all right? Okay, terrific. My name's Ed Wolf. I represent KGP Co. We are the end user of the space, and we are hoping to be allowed to store the reels of fiber cable, the conduits, and the sundry vaults and things that we'll be placing for the network that we're constructing on behalf of TDS Telecom. Also, one of your neighbors there in the surrounding community. We've been engaged to build this network over the next 20 to 22 months, and we need some storage space to effectively accomplish that. This space at the O'Brien Farm is quite ideal for that. It's got some existing concrete pad and hard packed gravel storage outside, and also a very large storage building that will comfortably house all of the materials that we need to construct the network. So we're requesting a variance to accomplish that.
All right. Anyone else from the applicant before we go to staff report? All right, Dina?
Okay, just to be clear, the applicants are requesting a conditional use permit to obtain a telecommunications and utility conditional use to allow the storage that was discussed before. This is the site with the current O'Brien solar farm. The zoning is exclusive agriculture, and so under the exclusive agricultural zoning, there is an allowance for a conditional use for telecommunications. Specifically, that item is number 3, transportation, communications, pipeline, electric transmission, utility, including wind energy and drainage use. Staff considers telecommunication as an allowable use under this clause. The zoning code does not provide a distinction between telecommunication infrastructure installed on site, so it'd be a permanent, versus temporary staging of materials and equipment used to install telecommunication infrastructure. If Plan Commission chooses to permit this conditional use, staff suggests that the permit sunset on December 31st, 2025, and that would mean for this use to continue past that sunset, or for a new lease owner to occupy the site, a new conditional use permit would be required. I did provide some additional information about conditional use requirements in exclusive agricultural zoning for the Plan Commission. And then staff does recommend approval of the conditional use with actually 9 items. And the 9th item was added by Ag and Rural Committee tonight, Ag and Rural Affairs Committee, and they added an additional number 9 that reads, the city attorney would review and agree with the staff opinion that this is an appropriate use under conditional use for exclusive agricultural zoning. I'm going to start that over and try that again. So number 9, that the city attorney review and agree with staff opinion that this is an appropriate use as a conditional use under exclusive agricultural zoning. So what Ag and Rural requested was that we get the city attorney's opinion on this, and just to ensure that the city attorney would agree with staff. So that would be a condition for approval. And so what that would mean, if Plan Commission so agreed, would be that if the city attorney did not agree with staff, then you wouldn't be granting the conditional use. This would be a condition.
Hey, Deanna, a couple of questions on that. This is Jeff O'Brien.
Sure.
One, I think we're okay with that, but can we put a time frame on?
What kind of time
Jeff, you muted
frame?
there.
I guess Jeff, you just muted yourself so we can't hear anymore. But I guess the question would be, what kind of time? I know the city attorney is off until, I think she might be in tomorrow, but she's going to be gone all next week.
Yeah, I'm not sure about her timeline. I can't speak to that.
Jeff, I don't know if you can speak to, is within the month okay? Is it within like 3 weeks? I don't think she's going to be able to get to it before the first of the year, but I don't know when you're planning on.
Well, we are pending executing the lease, obviously, and we do have pending, materials to receive into the location. But I can hold this at bay until the first of the year if that would be possible. Obviously, we can extend it as long as you require us to, because without the variance, we're not going to use the location. But if we could perhaps try to get it completed by the first of the year, I think that would be a very reasonable ask of you from us to be patient till then.
Yeah, I guess for the Planning Commission, my concern is that the first of the year, I don't know if that's feasible because our city attorney's gone all next week. So something to talk about, I guess, but we'll talk about this in discussion in a minute here. But first, before I get to the public hearing, I just want to ask Ed if you had anything to add from Ag and Rural Affairs.
Yeah. So there were 2 concerns at Ag and Rural. This was recommended for approval unanimously. One is that indoor and outdoor storage per se is not an available conditional use in AX zoning. So we're relying on staff's interpretation, which, I think is correct, but I'm not an attorney either, that basically a utility can do pretty much any function that a utility would do at this location. So in other words, the utility is going to be allowed to do something that no one else would be able to do. Now, if the city attorney agrees that that's the correct reading of our zoning ordinance, then we don't have an issue with it. But we wanted to make sure that that's the case, because otherwise you do have that slippery slope of why are you granting, a storage request here? You would not do this for anyone else. And then the other thing that came up with just, the traffic on Seminole Highway, their condition number 7 limits this to approximately 3 to 5 trucks 2 times a day. No one thinks that that's a problem. If all of a sudden it's 40 trucks a day and there's a complaint about it, we understand that conditional use can be revoked. So we just want to make sure that the applicants are aware that we're cognizant of that reasonable limitation, as long as that's where you're at. There's no issue.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Then I will.
Sorry, can we just, before we go on, can we clarify, because in the report it says that the conditional use would expire December of 2024, but Deanna, you had said December of 25 when you just read it, so I just want to make sure that everyone is clear on when would it expire.
24. I'm sorry if I read that incorrectly.
Okay.
2 years, so 23 and 24.
Got it.
24 is what I have written in the conditions. So that's.
That was our understanding, yeah.
Okay.
I have a question.
All right. Hold on.
Okay.
First, I want to do the public hearing real quick, open the public hearing. I do have Pat O'Brien, who is registered in support of the above matter, and that is the only public statement that I have right now. So, seeing anything else.
This is Jeff O'Brien. I was just going to make the note that you guys are putting in the roundabout.
Hold on, Jeff. Hold on. We got to follow. Hold on a second. First, I'm going to close the public hearing. And now, do you have something to add, Jeff? Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So we were just going to note, too, that you guys are putting in the roundabout at Lacey and Seminole to help with traffic flow. So that should help with the 3 to 5 vehicles as well. And we agree with Ed's point. We fully intend to respect the 3 to 5 trucks. And if it becomes more than that, we would come back to Ag and Rural and Plan Committee to update the waiver. But we fully expect it to be the 3 to 5.
All right. Did you have a question?
Question.
Yeah.
Are all of these materials going to be stored indoors?
No, some of these materials would be stored outdoors. Initially, all the materials were intended to store outdoors, but we just recently added the storage building to the lease, so more of them will now be indoors. But some of the reels of pipe and cable will almost certainly be outdoors, because it's just much more difficult to handle them safely indoors in a confined space, putting them on the trucks and things. So we'll put them outdoors.
How do we introduce consideration for the adjoining neighborhoods so that there might be some fencing looked at or something of that nature to have that stay less industrial looking?
It's like screening of some kind.
Yeah, some kind of a fence so that the new homes that are being built right across the street there aren't looking at these large supplies.
Can you pull up the site plan to see? Because I know there's buildings there that do some kind of shielding. I don't know if it's enough.
Site plan that was provided by the applicant, at this juncture, they were indicating storage kind of here. So these are the solar panels that are kind of wrapping around Lacey up here on the top, and then South Seminole is coming down here. So at the time of the application, they were indicating storage would be in this general area.
if you scroll down from there, you'll see that's a Google Earth photograph. Those containers and things were pre-existing. Oh, and that's a general example right there, that one, of generally what these materials will look like. So they'll be, they'll be in neat rows, and it's a little bit difficult, obviously, for me to think that looks bad. To me, it looks very normal and proper. Reels of pipe and cable and things look nice to me, being what I do. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't look messy. It should look like a tidy, construction yard with these reels. And most of them should, I think, be generally not terribly visible from people in their homes across the street. They should have a view if they're driving up and down the road. But the hope would be that, my expectation is that the yard will be kept very tidy. And then again, there'll be a dumpster on site to keep recycling and trash from being an issue. If we can keep more of them inside, then we will. We'll do certainly do our best to keep things tidy. It makes for a much safer and better workspace for us as well.
All right. Questions, comments? Mark, do you have a comment or a question? You want to answer a question, maybe?
If I might,
You gotta come up to a microphone. Zach can't hear you online if you're not.
Sorry.
I think this might be on Pat O'Brien, 2658 South Seminole. Also, there is a crop field in between Lacey Road and this area as a buffer. So probably in about half of the year, there will be, there is a crop field of corn primarily that is going to be a buffer that will probably act as not as a fence, but certainly for this year, there was corn that would have shielded any view to this area. So,
Question, Randy?
I would imagine that this inventory is going to continue to move. I mean, it's capital, and you're not going to strand it, correct? It's just the reels are going to continue to move in and out of this location.
That's correct. Yeah, they'll come in, they'll go out as they get low. We'll bring more in, and the trucks and the equipment that we use. Honestly, I think most people would be hard pressed to distinguish it from farm equipment. Honestly, it'll look very much like an active farm.
I guess just one question I have. Is this something you can do year round, or do you have to shut most things down when it gets to be 0 degrees like it is later this week?
Well, we certainly will slow down when it gets 0 degrees. It gets below 15 to 10 degrees. We won't risk the safety of the guys or the equipment. But below, up to about 20 degrees, yeah, we'll still be working.
Other questions, comments on some of the concerns? I guess I'm not really in favor of adding that 9th condition of the city. I think the city attorney should look at it, but the timing, unfortunately, it's the 20th right now, and I know that she's got a lot of things going on right now. I can't promise she's going to be able to look at it by the 1st. I don't know if she'll be able to look at it by the 14th. She's got a lot going on. So I think that's just my only concern. Should she look at it? Yes, and I think we should send it to her and make sure that she doesn't have any concerns. However, making that a condition is a little bit concerning just because I can't sit here and make any promises she can look at it by X date. So if she can't look at it by the 1st, then what?
Well, what happens if she disagrees with staff's reading of this?
Yeah, I guess that'd be a question for Deanna. I mean, I think if she does.
Well, it's certainly a possibility that she would disagree with staff on this. But if you all have chosen to approve the conditional use, it would stand. I would just point out, I do recommend that there is a sunset on the conditional use, but without that condition that would speak directly to the city attorney looking at it, without that condition, and you approve it tonight, it's approved.
Could it be something where it's, I don't know if temporarily approved is the right thing, but they can use that, well, and she's the attorney, hopefully can look at it by, say, the end of January. By the end of January. Unfortunately, they'll be starting to use it. I don't know how feasible that is, I guess, to say, well, sorry, you could only use it for a month because an city attorney looked at it and said there's a problem. Like, I think holding it up for a time that we can't guarantee is just a concern, I guess.
I think, why don't we say that the objection has to be in by the attorney, has to be done by the 15th of January. If she hasn't read it, there's no objection filed, everything proceeds. If she has, and then she's basically got up to the 15th to object.
And if she doesn't get to it, then it doesn't matter?
Proceeds, yeah.
Okay.
That's our fault if she's too busy or,
Seems reasonable. I mean, that should be plenty of time. If this is brought to her attention and she thinks this is just not a concern, I'm not going to spend any time on it, then that's kind of what her opinion is, so that's fine, right?
Yeah. Other thoughts?
This is Jeff O'Brien. I think this is a prudent conversation that the group is having. I guess Ed, I'd ask your opinion, but I think if we write the provision as that we're, she has till the 15th to object, and if she objects, it turns over the conditional use. We don't have the ability to execute the lease until January 15th, which puts the project behind. Now, of course, this is contingent upon the committee's approval, so we understand that. I actually was, I liked Aaron's first idea, which was, approving it without the 9th provision, and then Deanna's sunsetting of 2 years. Because if you do it that way, you've essentially put in a time period where it will fall off at 12/31/24. It stops, and if the city attorney does, in that 2 years decide this isn't an appropriate use, the project will still have gone on, but then it can stop. That's just a consideration. And Ed, I'd be interested in your opinion on. I know January 15th puts you guys in a little bit of a bind.
It's not ideal. However, I also want to be a good neighbor. we're going to be working in the city for a couple of years. My construction supervisor, Marlon's actually sitting in the room tonight. He's literally your neighbor. He lives in town, and we want to participate in this with you. And if it will make everyone the happiest, then we will defer until the 15th. Unfortunately, Jeff, that means we are going to have to defer, executing the lease, which again isn't ideal for you either. I'm okay with that if that's what it takes to make this body most comfortable with this. We can get by with that. I leave it to the board, but we can get to the 15th without it causing us tremendous, trouble.
When is she back in the office?
I was just going to say, I feel like I'm splitting hairs here, but the 15th is a Sunday. That gives 2 full weeks after the rest of this week and all of next week. I get the holidays are in there, but it does feel disingenuous to any community member to say, we're going to make you wait 25 days from the point of saying it's conditionally approved until we can actually say, yes, it's approved. I don't like making them wait 25 days.
That's why I'm asking when she's back, because I don't know whether she needs to.
So she's starting vacation tomorrow and is back on January 4th. And she's got a lot of other things going on. So,
Okay.
I mean, the 15th is a month from now, essentially. But she's not, I would say, the 5th. I mean, I think the 4th is the middle of the week. So that week is unlikely she'd get to it. She's got a lot going on.
Okay.
And we have one resource at our disposal for this? I know we have a city attorney, but there's
The
no other.
holidays, I don't know who else is around, I guess. Yeah. There might be a blizzard Thursday and Friday, so I don't know if we're even going to close City Hall or not, so I can't make any promises.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion on another modification. Let me know when the timing is right for that.
Well, we don't have a main motion, so to modify, but if you have a suggestion that whenever we make a motion, I mean, if you want to talk about that, go ahead.
I still have a concern about this fence. We've all seen construction sites. I understand we've got people that have production responsibilities. They're not going to be precise about putting these things back in a retail fashion so that it looks nice and tidy at the end of the day. And if I was one of the neighbors that had just put a home in over at Viridian or any of the new developments that we've got over in that area, we've got this site that looks industrial, and in the winter it's going to be unsightly. And I think a way to address that is at least to get some fencing up in that area so that they don't have to see it as they're coming down Seminole and Lacey. And if we had that condition in there, I'd be satisfied that we're not going to hear from the neighbors on this for the next 2 years, but that's a big concern for me.
Other thoughts?
I would say that I don't have that same concern, Janelle. I mean, this is 1,200 feet away from the road. And it's a pretty significant difference. I just don't see it as being problematic. I mean, they're already storing stuff out in this space from a farming perspective. I guess I don't see a major difference between what's happening there today already and what's going to happen in the future.
I'm not sure you'd let me put in fencing tall enough to actually blockade it or to cover it. Those reels are, 10 to 12 feet high in some cases. I don't know if I could actually effectively hide it in any case, with anything that would be less or more attractive than what's there. Fencing would represent actually a pretty significant issue. I'll do my best to keep as much inside the storage building as possible. That I will do that as a best practice on the site. But honestly, fencing would be a concern.
Agree.
I think I'm in agreement with Zach. I mean, Seminole Highway currently, and I'm just looking at the Google map and from driving by, I know there's some parked vehicles in the back, but I don't see that until we drive in the back. And I didn't know that anything was parked there until we were there for a function. And the distance to the north, I just don't know if you really actually see anything. And I'm not sure if the fencing would block those reels as well. So I'm inclined not to agree with Janelle.
Other comments on any of the items here?
I have a question for Deanna. How gray do you think the question of the storage use is in the zoning?
So this, I guess I'm not totally following you, Ed. This conditional use permit came as a conditional use application under number 3, under the telecommunication.
Right. I guess my question is, it seems like that conditional use was intended for installation of telecommunications and not for this specifically, yet it's written the way it is. So that's kind of where we're at. We're dealing with it as it's written. And I understand your opinion. I guess I'm asking you if you're confident that the city attorney is going to look at it, is going to agree with you, or you don't know.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not completely confident on that.
Okay.
I would say my experience with the telecommunications laws is that they pretty much let the telecommunications companies do whatever they want, and they purposely write it vague so that they can do kind of whatever they want. I mean, it was very unusual that we were able to deny that one cell tower, and that was just kind of a lucky almost instance where they had changed a lot and didn't get the approval to do that.
But this is the verbiage of our ordinance. That's a question here, right? Yeah.
And I think we already noted this is less of a static storage situation and more of an active, flow through of materials that are going off to be installed. That's sophistry, I grant you, but maybe that works.
And I have a lot more concerns if it was a permanent yard for both this and the fencing, actually.
I agree.
Then I'd have a lot of concerns, but this is a 2-year project, and it's hopefully providing another great option for internet for people in the city. If it was longer than if it was long term, then I'd have a lot of concerns. 2 years, they're going to have it done by the time.
If it helps, TDS is offering 2 gig service from this network that we'll be constructing. So it will be a significant opportunity for the local community to have some really great internet. I can do my best to build it to your homes first. That's not a bribe.
Oh, you're going to get us in trouble. No, that's going to get us in trouble.
I didn't say that.
All right. Other comments, questions? We'll do this a little different than normal. I mean, I'll have a motion, and then I'll see if anyone wants to do any kind of amendments to it before we vote. But, Ed?
I'm going to start out with a motion to approve this as it was approved by Ag and Rural, since I'm representing Ag and Rural here, and then if someone wants to amend that, I guess they can. I move to approve conditional use 2487-22 with the 9 conditions as noted, with a clarification to the 9th condition that the city attorney would have until, I think the 15th is a Sunday. So until January 13th, and if it has not been reviewed, it'll just deem to be approved.
All right.
Until the 13th to object.
All right. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Seconded by Zach. And I'll open up to any further discussion. If anyone wants to do an amendment to that, we'll do a little more official parliamentary procedure since there's a little disagreement. Anything people want to add, anything like that? All right. Let's see, nothing else then, I guess we'll go ahead and vote on the 9 conditions here. All in favor of approving with the 9 conditions, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay.
Nay.
Nay. Ayes have it. And so that is approved with the 9 items. All right. We will move on to an F, which is the conditional use permit by Mike Zulke, and also an ADR. And I think he is online here. I'm not sure who wants to speak to this, but go ahead.
Okay. Hi, thank you. Yes, we are looking for a conditional use on the property to reduce the front yard setback off of Traceway from 25 to 10 feet. And a couple of reasons for that is that we want to have this development be a little bit more engaged with the street and have some street presence, and also kind of relate to the senior housing that's across the street and the future housing or future development that happens to the east. Another thing with this, by moving it up, allows us, we do have our parking towards the back of the site, but it allows us to have a fire lane that wraps around the building. So fire department has clean 360-degree access to the building, and the fire lane would actually double as pedestrian space, so not your typical fire lane.
All right. Staff report.
Sure thing. So this is the hub that's coming before you as the conditional use, as already noted, and the architectural design review. Council approved resolution R-45-22 for the final design of the hub phase 1 on May 10th of this year. And so this is the next step in the design and construction process for the hub. I provided a few components for the Plan Commission for their reference. The applicants request the conditional use to reduce the front yard setback from 25 to 10 foot. This is a little bit different in terms of in park and recreation zoning. There is this special conditional use to reduce that front setback. So that's what's coming before you for the conditional use. Staff also notes, just for Plan Commission's own reference, and this is one of the conditions, that there is a shared parking easement that must be released by the easement owners prior to construction. This parking easement is currently paved and would be demolished for the new construction of the hub. Also, a private storm sewer needs to be addressed. The storm sewer serves 2101 Post Road and is not within an easement. To remove the storm sewer, the applicant and the city will need to work with the owner of 2201 Post Road. City of Fitchburg staff, Public Works, is working on this parking easement and then the storm sewer issue. The applicant did propose a revision to the site plan that raises the elevation of the building 2 to 4 feet to allow for a reduction in the amount of fill that would be required to remove from the site. The city's design team, including Public Works, agreed to move forward with that revision. And just giving you a little bit more background on that, the raised elevation would require an accessible ramp and stairs. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use with just one of our normal conditions and then approval of the architectural design review. So just 2 conditions on the conditional use, and then staff does recommend approval of the architectural design review with 12 conditions.
All right. I want to stick to the conditional use request first. Scott, is there anything on the conditional use request that you want to add? We'll get to the ADR next, but anything on the conditional use? Looks like no. All right. All right. So I will open the public hearing for conditional use requests. I think, Robert, are you part of the design team?
Yes, I'm the landscape architect. We're doing the site civil and landscape architecture for the site.
All right, great. I didn't think you were a member of the public, but I wanted to verify. All right, seeing no one else here, I can close the public hearing, open up the conditional use request, though, to questions, comments from the council, or the planning commission. I don't see any concerns. I don't see anyone else with concerns about the setbacks. Randy?
No, I'm just a little bit more information on the stormwater or the storm sewer.
I think that's probably for the ADR piece.
It's under the ADR? Well, I see that as an
addition. I think, Deanna, would that be for the ADR or the conditional use?
It'd be better to address it.
Yeah.
The conditional use is solely for that setback change.
All right, just noting, it's noted in item 3, but all right, we'll wait to the ADR.
Thank you.
All right. See nothing else. This one, I'll do a motion for the conditional use request.
I'll move the approval of the conditional use request CU-2488-22 with the 2 conditions set forth by staff.
Seconded by Ed. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that's approved. For the ADR, then, Mike or Robert, do you want to speak to this more?
Sure. Yes. What we're submitting for in the ADR is a multi-use project. So it's going to contain a small community park building with about 4,000 square feet. Along with this, we're having a playground to the east side of that, and the playground is going to reach multiple ranges from ages 2 to 5 and up to 5 to 12 in separate areas, and they'll have a poured in place kind of fall area as well. There will be a asphalt park basketball court, which will also double as a pickle area, and it's kind of a general use surface area on that. And then in the back, we have a bike park that will have 3 different kinds of levels of novice, anywhere from novice to expert, and also have a portion of it to be all wheels. And that area will be fenced off with certain openings for access to it. And those are really meant to provide safety from people on the outside kind of entering that space as well. So it's kind of a combined multi-use project that we're looking for. The building is going to be made of pretty solid materials. We're going to have brick and concrete stone on majority of the buildings, and up higher we are having a metal panel that kind of resembles a little bit more wood, kind of give it a little bit more of a warm, softer feel amongst with other types of wood that highlights the building itself.
All right. Deanna, is anything you want to add for the ADR?
No, there is not. Staff does recommend approval with the 12 conditions.
All right. Then we can go to discussion questions. Randy, do you want to start?
Well, the storm, I guess I'm just looking for a little clarification on the storm sewer. It impacts 2201, which is on Post Road, but we're on Traceway. Where does that storm sewer, what is the actual path, the route?
I can bring that up, and I would have to apologize if I have the wrong address. The addressing is a little odd with those apartments around there. But let me...
I think part of the problem with this parking thing, is that this is like one of the earliest developed areas of Fitchburg, and that was when we were a town, and there was not very good restrictions and requirements, and it's all kind of a mess.
Okay. But I put up here just the existing site plan. This is where the existing parking lot is, and there is an easement over that needs to be addressed. And then there is a storm sewer that is running down through the center of the site, if you can kind of follow this line.
And both are issues that need to be resolved before we can start doing anything.
So we're going to have,
yeah, so,
those issues are a condition of approval.
So if I were to look at a map just from Google, based on what you're presenting, the site plan, that storm sewer is parallel to the current parking lot that exists through the center of this entire project.
Yes.
Do we have a cost? No, maybe I shouldn't get caught up in that, right?
That I cannot answer.
I mean, it just sounds expensive to relocate.
It's something that is going to have to get addressed.
Sure.
Scott, I didn't know that you're online. Do you have any additional information you want to share?
Not at this point, but certainly these are issues that need to be resolved. I don't have anything further. I know Tracy and Mr. Brecklin have been trying to reach out to the owner to try to get some communication going to try and get this both of these items resolved.
Yeah, I think the thing I struggle with is the design. It's a beautiful design. It's great. Knowing the big picture, I'm worried about the cost. And when we were told that this is just going to be a nice shelter, now it's a building, which is more expensive, costs a lot more to maintain it. And so I have concerns that way. And it's fortunately that's not really our purview. This is really just to see if it's very nice material and looks very good what we have. My concern is that we're going to get a bill for $10 million to build this, and it's not going to happen at that point, especially if we have to start moving sewer lines and stuff like that. I guess at that point it just comes back because it's not what we approved if we do have to change the scope. Would that be correct, Deanna?
Yes, yes. If there are any major changes in the site plan, for example, the parking lot needs to be redesigned, then yes, the applicant would need to come back for a new architectural design review.
Randy?
Yeah, no, I mean, I still think this is a great project. It's just, and maybe I'm looking at it from a council standpoint. We are the body that will approve these additional dollars. So, but I guess maybe for purposes this evening, that doesn't, that just isn't part of the equation. So,
I think you're probably in the same boat I am, where we've been told certain things, and what comes before us is not what we've been told. And that's been a continual problem with this project, and it's held this project up because of that. This project should have been done, but because we're not getting what we were promised, then it gets delayed, and we find other things too, like the sewer line. But if it was handled better by certain people on council, they should have been done by now. And it keeps getting held up, and it's going to keep getting held up. And now we're going to have another big debate if it comes back, if we're at $10 million, and, oh, you hate this project. No, I don't. But again, we're getting off track, and that's not really what
you and I are just
sorry
concerned about the big picture of the financial picture as well. So,
can I comment on the financial picture?
Sure. We're kind of getting outside our purview, but yeah.
Oh, I can wait. Apologies.
It's just not something this body really actually has any impact or say on.
And maybe I might just make a general comment. We did, Enberg did do a preliminary budget estimate on the design that we did provide, and it did fall within the approved budget of the Common Council Resolution R4522, and we are understand that those are the direction of the council to remain within that approved budget amount.
All right, so back to the design, which is a beautiful design. It's a beautiful looking building. Rich, did you have a?
Yeah, I want to agree. I support this. I'm familiar with Engberg Anderson, and we all could look right out this window and see the library they did. And I think Mike Zolke was the architect on that too. So I'm fully in support of this.
Mm-hmm. I have a concern. I don't see any elevations from the north or the west. And with that building height change, you can sort of see what the main entrance off of Traceway is going to look like, because there's now going to be a ramp and stairs. But there's entrances on all four sides of this building, and you don't give us any kind of clear picture as to whether those are now graded at a ground level, or will each one of those need stairs and ramp?
I can answer that for you. So when we're looking at our grading, so the grading came along a little bit later on in DDs, and we realized that we were coming up with too much cut that needed to come out of that. And to kind of save that, what we proposed is to raise it up 2'4". So it seems odd that I'm raising it up 2'4", but what that does is it'll keep the back as an accessible straight entrance on the north side of the building. And on the front, we'll have a ramp for ADA accessibility, and then we'll have about 4 or 5 stairs that'll go up. But if we keep it at 2'4", we can grade up to the sides on both doors on either the east or the west side. That'll have a slight grade to it. It'll be ADA accessible with that grade, but will not require a handrail at all. So all the exits will be on grade except for the ones in the front.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions at all or comments or a motion?
I'll move approval of architectural design review for the hub 2220 Traceway Drive with the 12 conditions as noted by staff.
Second.
Sent by Randy. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, nay? All right, that is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now,
Thank you.
last thing is ordinance. Deanna, do you want to speak to this?
I will do my very best. This is a code change relative to wireless telecommunication facilities in the right-of-way. So this ordinance creates a third section in Chapter 64 of the Fitchburg ordinances, which will regulate telecommunications, wireless telecommunications in the right-of-way. So Plan Commission, of course, has had telecommunication facilities come before you. This ordinance change will specifically regulate telecommunication facilities in the right-of-way. And the city attorney and Public Works have been working closely on what these look like. So the ordinance is needed in response to the 2018 small cell order released by the Federal Communications Commission. The order imposed new and significant limitations on the municipality's ability to regulate wireless facilities in the right-of-way. And I'm just not going to go ahead and read all that, but staff does recommend approval of this ordinance 2022-041.
All right. And so, if I remember, is this kind of in response to like 5G where they can...
This small.
Yeah, so they can put 5G hubs like it's not every 10 feet, but when they talk about it, it seems like they're saying, oh, every light pole's got a 5G thing on it. And so it's really providing some things in place, even though, like we talked about earlier, they kind of just get whatever they want in the laws, and we have pretty limited ability to really stop them from doing stuff. But it's providing some, at least, direction along something like 5G or whatever the next generation is. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So specifically, the components in the right-of-way can include poles, antennas, base stations, equipment cabinets, power sources, meters, canisters, or boxes attached to a pole for housing these antennas and equipment and fiber lines. Most of the ones I've seen have been pretty small. It's not like a great big 100-foot tower. These are smaller facilities that are generally put in, but more things in the right-of-way.
So most of these, given that they're small, are going to go on existing traffic signal poles or street light poles or whatever it may be. But standalone poles is noted also. So there must be some circumstances under which they got to put up their pole for this. And I just don't know how comparable this is to the cell phone towers where we've required co-location. What type of proliferation of additional poles might we be seeing?
I don't have an answer to that. I would be more than happy to do additional checking on that, but we can just take a quick look in the ordinance too.
I mean, if in large part they probably don't want to go through the expense of putting up a pole if they don't need to. If they can put it on a telephone pole or whatever, they're probably going to do it that way. And I guess if that's the answer to my question, then I'm really not too concerned. But
probably. But yeah, I don't think we know. And again, we don't know what the future technology is either. I mean, that could change things as well.
I'm just trying to picture what a standalone pole looks like. Does it just look like a streetlight pole that, or is it going to be something bigger like a cell phone pole?
I guess that'd be my question as well. And I didn't read the whole thing, and someone looking online hasn't read through this packet. But can we require them to, if they're going to put up their own pole, can we make it some kind of requirement that looks like the light poles or some other existing infrastructure, so that they don't put up a bright yellow pole or a wood pole or who knows what else, so that it actually looks like everything else there, and it's not this who knows cheap thing, whatever they can get away with type of a thing. That, you look at something like Terravessa where they have very specific light poles in that neighborhood. Well, we probably want something similar to that if they're going to end up putting up more poles. And I don't know if they'll need to. Maybe in the future they will, but I want to at least have something in there that requires them to have something that is similar to what's existing in that neighborhood.
Or an ADR requirement.
Yeah.
Would be the other possibility.
Yeah. That might be a little tricky in the right-of-way. I mean, usually Public Works oversees what's in the public right-of-way. Okay. It says that, quick look, there isn't anything that's really specific that makes a requirement in this ordinance for co-location. It does say that any new structure on which an antenna is mounted must be 50 feet in height or less, or no more than 10% taller than adjacent structures, or not extended a height of more than 50 feet or more than 10% of a pre-existing height, whichever is greater as a result of the co-location. So it appears to be that there's some height restrictions in here.
If you want to call it that. If you want to call it that. 50 feet, I would say, is quite generous in a right of way.
I can assure you that, that staff has did as much as they could to protect the city. But it is difficult to put too many requirements on these telecommunication companies.
My guess is that we can do whatever we want. We can put whatever we want in here, but it's not going to have any teeth. And if it does, then they'll just go to the legislature and have them change the law, so it's not relevant anymore.
Or sue us.
Well, yeah, well, and they'll sue us besides, so we'll also lose money in a lawsuit.
Yeah. But I'm happy to check further on that, Ed, however you all would like to proceed.
You ready for a motion? Does anyone ever, do you have more?
There you go.
Ed, you're not going to beat the telecom people, so let's wrap this puppy up.
I still want to
I know. I'm right there with you, but
Janelle, did you have a comment?
Have we checked with any of the other cities to see how they're responding?
I think this is based off of some other city municipalities, actually. I know that Valerie was checking with some other municipalities to see what they had done.
Okay.
So who did we cut and paste this from?
I wasn't involved in it.
Someone.
But I'm sure that staff was working with other municipalities on
Yes,
this.
she was. She'll be back on the 5th if you want to ask her. All right, any other last comments before we just...
I'll move to approve ordinance 2022-0-41.
Second.
Send it by Randy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And nay, if you're opposed. All right, there's some begrudging yeses, but the ayes have it. And that is approved. Department report.
The department doesn't have any specific news or information, just happy holidays.
All right. With that, I don't have any announcements myself, so unless someone else does, is there a motion to adjourn?
I guess
Oh,
if we
Stephen.
could, in one of the upcoming meetings where we have a lighter agenda, it was nice in previous, either every 6 months or a year, we'll get some sort of an update in terms of here's what you've approved in the last year and where those projects are at. A lot of times we approve things and they don't actually come to fruition, or they do after a year or two, and we have to, see them again. So just be interesting, the larger things that we've approved, if you, not on the heavy agenda night, because nobody's going to care at 10 p.m., but if there's a lighter agenda coming up next month or the month after, it'd be nice to see something like that in a pretty regular cadence of, every 6 to 12 months.
Especially the smart code.
Yeah,
We
especially
don't
anything
see
with
those.
smart code, we don't see it again, so it'd be great to just know what happened.
Yeah. We can certainly do that. Yes.
All right. Now, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved to
Second.
adjourn by Randy, seconded by Stephen. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, nay. All right, we are adjourned.